I want to welcome you to this wonderful presentation with our guest presenter, Kerry Byrne. And this presentation is being hosted by the Mental Health Association of Maryland today. And just real briefly, a little bit about us at the Mental Health Association of Maryland. We are an education and advocacy organization. For more than 100 years, MHAMD has addressed the mental health needs of Marylanders of all ages through programs that educate the public to increase understanding and provide resources, advance public policy and improve care and outcomes, and help to monitor the quality of treatment and resources throughout Maryland for people living with mental illness and substance use disorders. So together today, our Children's Mental Health Matters campaign and Older Vibrant Minds program came together to help put this program together for you with Kerry. So Tiffany will introduce the Children's Mental Health Matters campaign.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tiffany Thomas, and I'm the coordinator of the Children's Mental Health Matters campaign, which is a statewide effort across the state of Maryland to raise public awareness of the importance of children's mental health and substance use and help reduce stigma of children's mental health and help connect families and educators and providers throughout the state to resources to help children. And we do a lot of different activities and events throughout the year, particularly focusing January through May. And the first full week of May every year is Children's Mental Health Awareness Week. And you can learn more about Children's Mental Health Awareness Week and all the things that we'll be doing in 2021 later in January, as we'll be posting updates about that on our website. And I'll post a link to that in the chat for you. And you can find a wealth of resources for your family about how to support your children with their mental health needs on our website as well. So I'll post a link for that in the chat for you.
And Older Adults Vibrant Minds. My name is Casey Saylor. I'm the Older Adult Project Manager for the Mental Health Association of Maryland. And Older Adults Vibrant Minds is basically our older adults programming. We have a statewide kind of focus and also a Baltimore County specific focus through the Vibrant Aging Peers program. So Maryland established, the Mental Health Association of Maryland rather, established our Vibrant Aging Peers program. My words are getting all mixed up, excuse me. Vibrant Minds started in 2001. And it really focuses on providing education and advocacy around mental wellness for older adults. We build partnerships. We have tons of resources, one of which is our Mental Health in Later Life Guidebook, which I'm holding up on my screen. Some of you may already have your free copy of this. Others, this may be something you're interested in. It basically covers everything I think you could want to know about getting older and how it affects your brain and how you can help to keep your brain healthy and maintain your mental wellness as you get older. So you can learn more about aging in the brain and download the free guidebook or ask us to mail you a free copy at our website, mdaging.org. And I'll put that link in the chat as well. All right, so without further ado, I want to introduce you to our guest presenter, Kerry. Kerry is an expert in care, connection, and aging. She is the founder of the Long Distance Grandparent, a social mission business helping grandparents build strong bonds with their grandchildren from a distance. As a mom to 2 boys with grandparents living abroad, she is deeply committed to fostering meaningful connections between grandparents and grandchildren. Today, Kerry will share practical yet meaningful ways to nurture these bonds from a distance. So we're going to hand it over to Kerry now. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Casey. Thank you, Tiffany, for inviting me to come. So I want to start off on perhaps a somber note by just acknowledging that this is a really tough time for a lot of people, and in particular for grandparents. We've had a few grandparents already comment in the chat that they're not going to be seeing their family for Christmas. We are in the same situation. My kids haven't seen their grandparents in a year. Just before the pandemic came along, we had plans to go to Canada. We had plans to go to Ireland and England for a family wedding. And so I just want to acknowledge that there's a lot of grandparent grief, and I see it in my inbox because I hear from grandparents who are really struggling during this time. But today I want to inspire you to stay connected. And I want to give you really practical ideas to do that, to have fun and meaningful connections. So I hope you'll leave inspired. I know you will leave with some very concrete things that you can do. And if you don't, then call me out on it, email me and say, I have this particular situation, and I will send you ideas. Okay, so what can you expect today? First of all, I'm going to just quickly review why relationships with grandparents matter. I want to share with you something that I've developed called Your Grand Path to Connection. And while I developed it for long distance grandparents, this will work to help you stay connected to anybody in your life from a distance. Then I'm going to share what I call the secret sauce of staying connected from a distance, my connection loop. And again, really practical ideas for staying connected. So, I mean, most of you on the call right now probably know that grandparents matter, right? You know that the relationship is important. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be here, and that staying connected with family is important in particular for our mental health during this time. Grandchildren who have strong relationships with their grandparents, so from a societal perspective, they're more likely to be less ageist, right? They're less likely to discriminate based on age, which is a huge kind of outcome from a societal perspective. But for children and for grandparents, when they have close, strong bonds and a close relationship, they report reduced levels of depression. And this is in longitudinal studies, right? So they've looked at it over a number of years. Grandparents provide for grandchildren a sense of identity, sense of belonging to something that came before. And this is why sharing your family stories is so important. There's been a lot of research around sharing family stories and how that contributes to children, especially in their teenage years. So for example, if you're sharing stories about some kind of adversity that you have overcome, and in particular, this time is a good time to share that because it's not just older people that are feeling kind of social isolation or loneliness. Younger people are reporting this as well. And so by sharing these kinds of stories, children, even though they don't appear to be listening, will draw on these stories in their teens and when they're adults. And this is what they talk about with their grandparents, right? When this happened with grandpa. So these moments of adversity are really important to share with your grandchildren. In a study done by the American Association of Retired Persons, the grandparenting study, 81% of grandparents say that they play an important role in their children's lives. And this pans out in the research. 9 out of 10 grandchildren report that their grandparents influence their values and behaviors in their lives. And 89% of grandparents say their relationship with their grandchildren is good for their mental well-being. And so again, if you're here today, then you probably already believe in the importance of this relationship for a number of aspects of our health. The other reason that I have focused on grandparents and the grandparent-grandchild relationship in particular is because there are a lot of you, right? There are almost 1 billion grandparents in the world. There are 70 million in the US alone, and you will have on average about a 20-year relationship, so 20 to 30 years. That is a lot of grandparent fueled influence and time to make a difference in your grandchildren's lives. And so today, I have long distance grandparents up here, and we're going to be talking about this, but you might be geographically distant. So over 50% of Americans report that they live over 200 miles from a grandchild. Just about 50% report that distance is a challenge in staying connected to their grandchildren and having meaningful relationships. But you also might be feeling emotionally distant. Some of your grandchildren are in virtual school. This is my son right now. He's not in school, he's virtually schooling. And so the video chat used to be kind of the domain of the long distance grandparent or the grandparent from a distance. And increasingly you have some competition because they're in school all day online and don't necessarily want to be online again with anybody afterwards. And you might be physically distancing. So I work with grandparents who are also physically distanced from their grandchildren right now. And whatever your situation, maybe you're a parent on the call today, you can, a lot of these ideas are developed. I'm a parent, and so a lot of these ideas are developed based on my own experience in keeping my kids connected and connecting with my nieces and nephews who are older I'm an older mom. So what I hear from people is that they're often worried that they won't be able to build a bond from a distance, that it's hard to keep kids' attention. We saw this in the chat. It's hard to keep their attention on FaceTime or video chats. But what I've come to understand is that, you know, distance doesn't have to make it, it doesn't make it impossible to stay connected. Does it require a bit of extra effort and attention? Absolutely. But it's definitely not impossible. So I'm a mom to 2 little boys, as Casey said, and we have always lived at a distance from grandparents. But what I'm going to share with you today is beyond just my own experience, because I'm also a research scientist. And so I have looked at the science of connection, how to form deep and meaningful relationships. I've looked at the science of moment making, the science of surpriseology. There is a science of surpriseology. So you'll see a lot of what I share is about surprising and delighting children and the interactions that you have with them. And I've also interviewed a lot of grandparents. And after all of this time spent talking with grandparents, talking with parents about some of the big challenges that they're facing, this is what I have come up with. So this is called Your Grand Path to Connection. And although I have laid these 5 elements out in a list, they really are more overlapping. So planning for connection, partnering for connection, preparing for connection, playing for connection, and preserving for connection. And so maybe some of you who have older grandchildren are saying, well, I'm not going to play with my 16-year-old grandchild. And I would say that it's really about a willingness to be playful in your interaction. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we move along. So I have a question for you. And are you a grand with a plan? Or are you a parent with a plan to keep your kids connected to their grandparents? I bet you have retirement plans, you've made vacation plans. Some of you probably have meal plans, or you've made project plans or business plans. But have you stopped to think about what kind of relationship you want to have with your grandchild? And so I work with grandparents and go through this exercise about creating what I call a grandparent vision statement. And we're not going to do that today, but what I do want you to do is just to consider these 2 questions. The first one is what are the most important values or skills that you want to pass on to your grandchildren? Is it creativity, kindness, compassion, determination, humor? Like, what are the things that you want to make sure that you pass on to your grandchildren? And what do you want them to remember most about you? And so this sounds kind of a bit woo-woo, like make a grandparent vision statement, but this becomes, it's just write 100 words, right? Sit down and be in that connection about what you hope to pass on to your grandchildren. And I have had grandparents share this with parents. I can remember speaking to in one interview that I did with a grandmother who, after 8 years, her grandson was 8 years old. And she said to me, I really wish that I would have written my son a letter about the importance of this relationship to me. And this wasn't because they had a poor relationship or that she wasn't creating beautiful connections with her grandson, but she felt that it would have just been something that was more tangible and that she could then give to her grandchild one day to say that I was there. And as a grandparent from a distance, you are working hard, and that needs to be reflected somewhere. I think that having this vision provides a North Star for you, because as they become teenagers, there are just different challenges in connecting with them at that age. And so coming back to what's your intention in this relationship is really key. Okay, so I'm going to talk about partnering for connection now. And so the most obvious partner would be the parent. And sometimes that's the most challenging partner as well, right? Is getting the parents to make time to connect with the children. And then for parents, sometimes they find that the grandparents are a challenge to stay connected to because they, for example, don't come onto calls with things to talk about. And so that makes it more challenging for parents. And we're going to talk about that today. But I want to talk about the other partners that you have in your sphere and in your network. So these are my partners in connection. This is my sister-in-law who's in Scotland. This is Oma and Gramps, and they are in England. And these are the cousins, right, and my in-laws. And so, and this is my son, and we are making wooden spoon puppets and telling stories. And, you know, there are times when this one, who just turned 6, will come on the call because he wants to talk to his cousin. So having these family Zoom chats are really important, bringing other people into that connection, bringing an auntie into a Zoom call. And it doesn't matter necessarily what technology you use. Like the ideas that I share, if you're using WhatsApp, if you're using Zoom, FaceTime, Facebook Messenger, I mean, there are numerous ways that you can kind of get a video connection to someone in your life. But the ideas that I share kind of are not specific to a certain technology. And so in this case, when you're partnering, get the cool uncle to come onto a call. You know, enlist an older cousin who's a teenager. I'll tell you that there is a 13-year-old somewhere back here who only comes to these calls because of this guy, right? Because he wants to connect with his cousin. And so it's also a beautiful thing as a grandparent or as a parent to be able to bring your family together in that way. Let's go back to the parents for a moment, because I think one of the best things that you can do for parents right now, especially if you're at a distance, is to really nurture that partnership and thank them for the work that they're doing to help you stay connected. So I had a grandmother do this. You know, she wrote a letter to her daughter saying thank you for FaceTiming when they're in the bath, taking the time to do all of it, because it's acknowledging them and validating them during a time when they are quite possibly doing what I'm doing, which is working from home with the kids here and virtually homeschooling. And for the first time in my life, trying to understand kindergarten, which thankfully it's not like grade 6 math, because I feel like I'm going to start to struggle about there. But I think that that's a really important piece, is just to acknowledge the parents and share with them what a great job they're doing as parents, right? Highlight something in the child that you see that is because of the hard work that they're doing. And that goes a long way in nurturing this partnership. And they really are, you know, they really are the gatekeeper to the relationship. And so I'm the gatekeeper. And in the research, if there's a strong relationship between the parents and the grandparents, then you are more likely to have a successful connection. Okay, so we're going to move on to the prepare part. And this is the behind the scenes work of staying connected from a distance. And this, I'm actually going to just stop sharing my screen for a moment, because it's demonstration time, as I like to say. I'm going to pop myself onto, okay, so I want you to, the behind the scenes work of staying connected is really about what you do to prepare for some of these video chats, right? It's what you do to prepare for if you were going to even see them in person. I want you to sweat the small stuff. So I want you to keep a grandchild cheat sheet. So it can be just a notepad beside wherever you video chat with them or whenever you talk to their parents. Write down what their teachers' names are, so that every time you get on the phone with them, you're not asking what their teachers' names are. You're starting from a place of Mrs. Smith, right? Because you know that they will remember these little details. Finding out what books they're interested in, right? For older grandchildren, what causes do they care about? Do some reading about Generation Z. So Generation Z will be children who are born after 1996, so roughly kind of 24 and under. And this generation has never lived without technology. And it's quite an interesting read to go and look up kind of what their perspective is about technology. And they're also quite socially minded, right? So if you have a grandchild who's really interested in the environment, for example, you can connect about that. And I'll tell you how in a second. Maybe they're really interested in animal welfare. I mean, there are a number of different things, but you have to be able to, remember it, right? Like you have to be able to mark that down so that you're coming to the conversation with something to share with them. For younger grandchildren, and I'm going to say kind of 10 and under, but you could pull this out for older grandchildren too. I want you to just think about keeping what I call a video chat grab bag. And so this does not have to be complicated, but it's much more interesting. Like if I get onto a call with you and you're 5 years old and I'm wearing these, right? It's just something on your face, something on your head. my husband went out and got these for me. And I have a really weirdly large size head, so I don't even know if this is going to fit, but anything on your head, you don't have to go out and get, I know that lots of people can't get out right now. And so you can just take a pair of your glasses and get creative, right? Stick a couple pieces of pasta, stick a sticker to your glasses. Even my 6-year-old likes to reach through the screen and try and, get the sticker off grandpa's forehead. Like, these are just really simple ways that you can be prepared. And maybe they're going to think you're ridiculous, and that's okay, right? We have to manage our expectations. Sometimes kids who are, 8 or 5 or 3 or, whatever age, will get on to a FaceTime chat and not want to talk. And it doesn't matter what you have on your head or on your face. But it's because, they were told that they had to stop playing a video game. They were told that, for my son, no, you cannot have a third cookie. And so it's nothing to do with his grandparents, but very much about what's going on in his life. There are lots of things that you can do. This is my little video grab bag that I have here, right? And so kitchen utensils make great puppets for, for kind of playing with kids, and, much more interesting when you put googly eyes on. Send them some googly eyes in the mail and then decorate these kitchen utensils. If you want to preserve your kitchen utensils, grab a potato. I will tell you that I took out this kind of lonely pepper to show you how to kind of make him into a puppet, but make sure they've been out of the fridge for a while because your googly eyes won't stick to them, but you can just use a Sharpie, right? And it's a carrot. You can use anything that you have in your house and turn it into a puppet and just have a little bit of fun and tell stories, using these different, different things that you have around the house. This is the surprise and the delight component of all of this, right? And it's being willing to be silly. I've worked with a grandparent before who said, I'm really not silly. Like, that's just not my thing. And then she tried the funny glasses and, had such a lovely interaction with her grandson that she's going to sprinkle in that silliness. I want to just kind of review for those of you who have older grandchildren, because there are a number of different things that you can do in terms of playing games together on Zoom. And I suspect that over the holidays that there'll be lots of family gatherings. And again, it doesn't have to be a big complicated production. You don't need to be a 3-ring circus, but this is one of our family's favorites at holidays. It's just to play, guess how many jelly beans, and then everybody guesses how many. And you can do this in advance. So you can kind of send a video showing them the jelly beans, how many are in here. Grandma's going to send the winner, $10 or whatever it is. But it's just a way to provide some excitement about getting onto the call because everybody puts in their guesses and it's really simple. Another great game that works during meal times is playing memory tray. Right? So just grab a baking sheet, put on a few fun items. If the grandchildren are older, make it harder. Older kids like this too. It's a lot of fun and it's unexpected, right? So they have to guess, they get to look at the tray for so long. They have to guess what's on, what items are on the tray. You take it away, right? They get a minute to guess and write things down, and then you all come back together. So those are just some kind of really simple games. And meal times are a great time to try and connect because kids, no matter what age, usually are expected to sit down for a meal. And so, ask to be propped up against a flower pot and join them for a meal. If you can, send a pizza and share pizza with them, or have Taco Tuesday and make tacos together on Tuesday nights. Being able to do something together, I'm a firm believer that most things that you would do in person together are also things that you could do virtually together. You can do that through video together. You can build gingerbread houses together. There are just a lot of different games that you can play from a distance, but together that you would do even if you were in person with them. You can have a family quiz night with questions if you're celebrating Christmas, questions about Christmas, a spin on it for families. And if you want to, and especially for older grandchildren, so teenage grandchildren, ask everybody to come to the call with 3 things about them. So for us, I've started this game with my family, and it's, Grandpa has a dog named Wiggy, or Grandpa had a dog named Wiggy Whammy when he was a kid. And so everybody has to guess if that's true or false. So you give a family fact, and then they have to guess whether it's true or false. And kids as young as 5 will get this concept, and it's silly, right? Because it's silly, but it keeps all ages. We've played this kind of game with ages about 5 to 85, and everybody loves it. And we all learned, for example, that my mother-in-law, Oma, indeed slept in a hostel, and we all thought she did not sleep in a hostel when, I don't know, she was in her 20s, but my husband remembered this story that yes, she had. And so we got to explain to our son what is a hostel and just show another side of grandma that or Oma rather, that he doesn't exactly know. So making, doing kind of active games. So playing things like dance charades is really fun. So you have to dance out whatever the charade is. There are, a number of different things that you can do, like bingo together and make it Christmas themed. There are dog bingos online that you can get, cat bingos, whatever your grandchildren are interested in. But I think that, you want to come to the call with some jokes on hand, right? Some age appropriate jokes that you can tell. Would you rather questions? I mean, older children like this game as well, right? Would you rather, ride to school on an elephant? I can't think of anything right now, but, or eat a purple caterpillar, whatever it might be, right? So there are lots of examples online of would you rather questions. And I think I have some on my website as well, but it's just about being prepared with some conversation starters. And again, setting your expectations accordingly, because sometimes these things will flop, but it's really about having the confidence to try it out. I'm going to go back to my slides, and I'm going to just take a moment to see if there are any questions. And Casey, would you like to come back on and just let me know? Or if anybody has any immediate questions right now, can you pop them into the chat?
We do not have any questions right now, but if you have one, yes, please pop it into the chat. And I want to remind folks that you will not be able to unmute yourself tonight. So please type any questions that you have or comments into the chat box so we can read them.
Okay. So now I want to talk about the connection loop. And this is really important for anyone that you're trying to stay connected with in terms of a relationship with a child, a young child, a teenager, even an adult grandchild. And what this is really finding a way to connect the mail that you send to virtual connection, the in-person time that you get to spend together to virtual, they kind of go all different ways. And I want to just provide an example of how this works. So if you're going to send them something in the mail, then you want it to be something that will prompt a connection, right? So so for younger grandchildren, if you're going to send them a coloring page, maybe they're really into Paw Patrol or, whatever it is that they're into, dinosaurs, you want to just take a sticky note and pop it onto the, onto the actual coloring page and say, call me, video call, whatever it is, Skype me, FaceTime me, and tell me, what color you colored Marshall, right? Like you want to ask for that connection and prompt them to connect you, because over time, they'll start to realize that the mail that grandma and grandpa sends, has a bit of a request in it. And so they'll ask the parents to actually, and this is happening in our membership right now with grandparents, right? Where they ask the parents, we've got mail from grandma, so we need to call grandma because there's something in there that I need to talk to her about. With older grandchildren, so let's say kind of like the tween ages, you can send a joke without the punchline. You can send these would you rather questions and say, let's have a chat about, let's have a would you rather chat. Let's have a timed favorites chat, right? Where you kind of call, you put a timer on, anything that has a time component. For kids, they really like that. I think that for older grandchildren, it's once you have found out what they're really interested in, what they're passionate about, you can use that information and print out an article. The mailbox is really your domain now. Not a lot of people are sending things in the mail. And so this is something that you can really do to stand out. I always encourage you to kind of make your envelope look kind of fun or different, or maybe you send the same envelope all the time, but put stickers, put googly eyes on it, make it look interesting and make it stick out. But for older grandchildren, you're going to send an article that you read maybe about a local environmental initiative in your community, and you know it's something that they care about, and you'd like to ask them what they think about it. But older grandchildren don't call their grandparents because, first of all, they're worried that their grandparents are going to keep them on the phone for an hour, right? And this is a generation that is not that used to talking on the phone. And then secondly, they don't know what they're going to talk to them about. And I actually remember feeling this way about my grandpa, and he was a phenomenal conversationalist. But I thought, like, what are we going to talk about? And so tell them what you're going to talk about, and tell them that it's going to be for 10 minutes, right? I just want to talk to you for 10 minutes, and then honor that. I mean, if they're opening up to you and you get into a really neat conversation, but, don't drag it on, just kind of say, just call them at 11:15 and say that, I have 15 minutes basically to chat about this particular issue. So the other thing that you can do is that if you're going to send them mail, send a video of yourself at the mailbox, right? Putting it in the mail, and then send, especially for some of you who have younger grandchildren, like I saw some people that have kind of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, send them little hints about it, build some anticipation about what's coming in the mail. And this can just be, like I said, a coloring page or a picture, but it'll be the fun, and it's really about building on that anticipation so that when they get it, they've guessed it or they haven't guessed what's in the package, as an example. You can do this for older grandchildren too. I mean, if you send them a gift card for a coffee shop, then ask for that connection. Say, they're good at selfies, right? So, just take a selfie with your coffee if you don't mind, and send it to grandma. I think sometimes it really is about asking for that connection, because that's what you want, and that's what you want for your grandchildren to be doing. Books are a really powerful way to connect with grandchildren. I'm just going to pop out of here again because I just want to show you a couple of examples of some different books that you can use. So I think they are sometimes a missed opportunity because grandparents buy 40% of children's books, right? So grandparents are buying a lot of books. And I know as a parent, I buy a lot of books for my kids as well. Or we go to the library, not now, but that was something that, it's just books and being able to share and connect through books. But you can really use books to connect with your grandchildren, right? So if you are in different countries, buy books about the country that you live in to get them interested in that country or state or town. Because as they get older, if you're the grandparent that lives out of state or out of town or out of country, a different continent, then you become even more interesting to them because that is something new. I grew up going to Ireland. My dad is Irish, born and raised in Dublin. And, that really became so much a part of my identity. And now, my children have books about Ireland and we read them. And that's something that really connects him to his grandparents, is having books that are about that. I think that, buying books about, like this is a great one, right? Have you filled a bucket today? And this is all about kindness and being a bucket filler. And before you send the books, take a sticky note and just write something down, like write something in. You can pop it into any page you want and just say, Nana loves you. You can also say, and check with the parents, because if they're reading a bedtime story, they might not want you to do this because they might not want you to be, my son would use this as an excuse to get out of bed immediately and call grandpa. But, on like, let's go to a page, right? So we're on, page 21, and, call me when you get to page 21, because I have a question that I want to ask you, right? Like there are a multitude of ways. This is for older grandchildren. So those of you who have kind of 9 to 12, this one's called 101 Ways to Change the World, and it's by Lonely Planet. This is something that, it has my son, who, again, we got this book when he was 5. He still loves it. There are all kinds of activities that you can do together, donate food. You can do things like, if they care about the environment, let's together from a distance, turn off the water when we're brushing our teeth in between and save water, right? Connecting about something that they care about and doing that intentionally from a distance. You can, do kindness projects together from a distance, right? So that you both agree that you're going to go that you're going to collect, some old newspapers around the house and donate it to an animal shelter if that's something that your grandchild cares about. But even talking to them about the act of doing that puts you in service together, but also provides a beautiful connection. And it can just be, you're both going to bake cookies and drop them off at a neighbor's house. You're going to write a sidewalk chalk message, take a picture and show them that you did it for your neighbor, and then they're going to do it for a neighbor in their community. So you're going to spread kindness together in that way. Okay, so let's just see if I have, there's so many lovely books. That this one I love also. It's called Just Ask, and it goes through children. So for example, children who have asthma or children who might have depression or anxiety, and kind of explains it and then says, like, just ask people, right? So it's a neat book. And if there is a value or something that you want to be involved in sharing with your grandchild, then it's quite a powerful way of doing that. For older grandchildren that are reading chapter books, I just had a grandpa email me the other day to say that he was reading chapter books with his grandson. His grandson gave him the chapter books. They've been reading it, discussing it together, and that they're having quite a lovely connection in that way. Okay, I'm going to just pop back on my screen. We're coming to an end pretty soon for the presentation part. Oops, sorry.
Kerry, there is a question that someone typed out that says, I have grandchildren that span from age 1 to 21. How do I bring them together virtually when the olders feel more attention is being paid to the youngers?
So sorry, you want ways to bring them all together at once, or ways to provide attention to all of them? Could you just clarify that in the chat?
Yep. Patricia, would you mind to clarify about that? All at once.
So bringing them together all at once virtually.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is where having a game planned in advance is going to, be something that's really important. And that I think also enlisting the help of the older grandchildren, right? So saying to the older grandchildren, that you'd really like their help in engaging with the younger grandchildren and bringing them on calls together is a really good way, because it makes them feel, purposeful, that you guys are in this together. I'm not sure what ages. One is hard on video chatting. But when it comes to, say, if you have grandchildren that are kind of 5, 6, 7, ask the older grandchildren to get involved. You could do something along the lines of a family interview project. This would be a way, where you all kind of take turns interviewing each other, asking each other certain questions. And so this provides an opportunity for grandchildren to feel special and share with you, no matter what their age. Let me know if any of those help, and if that's kind of what you had in mind. It's hard when I can't see anybody nodding in response or not nodding in response to what I'm saying. So just, if I have not answered your question, then please let me know. Okay, I don't want anyone to leave without their question answered. Okay, so this is the last.
Those were great suggestions.
Okay, great. Thanks. Good. So this is the last one. This is the last element of the framework. And this is one that is very near and dear to my heart. And this is preserve connection. And so this is an example. And I'm so proud of myself, because I just made a photo book of all of these screenshots that I've been taking since we started the pandemic. We've had a call every Sunday scheduled at 12 o'clock because we're dealing with time differences. That's a really another key thing to do, is to get into their routine somehow. Everybody won't always be able to make it. Like down here, the cousins weren't able to make it, but we had so much fun, playing this game. So take the virtual screenshot. If your parents out there, take the screenshot. If you're grandparents, once you get to see your grandchildren again, get in the picture. So I had someone tell me this when I was a new mom, and I did not want to be in a picture. And what I find is that grandparents go to visit the grandchildren and they spend all their time taking pictures of the grandchildren. But what your grandchildren want to see one day are pictures of you together, right? They want to see what I call the grandparent gaze, right? The way you looked at them. Take videos of you guys together. Get the parents to take videos. Make sure that you can preserve the connection in that way. I think I'm just about on time. Let me just check yeah, right. We're right at 7:15. I'm happy to answer any specific questions that you might have. I'm going to just, so this is the website that I have called the longdistancegrandparent.com, and you'll find my email address. So feel free to reach out, and I often blog about ideas for staying connected. So if you're looking for something a little more, you'll certainly find it on the site. And I also send out emails every week with just an idea or an inspiration to stay connected. For those of you with older grandchildren, I also just wanted to share with you that there's a podcast called this. So the podcast is for anyone who's a grandparent. It's called The Grand Life by a grandmother to 9. And she really addresses some of the tougher issues that we face as grandparents and in the grandparent-grandchild relationship in a very intentional way. And she has a podcast coming out about staying connected to teens, and it's going to be coming out on December 28th. And so I always recommend Emily's podcast because she's doing some really phenomenal work in this area. Okay.
There's a question that someone wants to know if you've written a book.
No, not yet. Not yet. I have a draft for a book called, 1001 Ways to Stay Connected to Your Grandchild. But what I'm actually working on right now is a membership program. And so I just launched it in the summer, and it's for grandparents that have grandchildren ages 2 to 10 for now. I'm hoping to expand it to grandparents who have grandchildren that are older. But it's a monthly membership. And so every month grandparents get this connection pack filled with different ideas. And I call it, one of the sections is based very specifically on the connection loop, because you get mail that matters, right? Mail that will prompt connection. And so, yeah, the book hasn't come along yet, but thank you for thinking that I have enough information to write one.
This has been really, really great, Kerry. We have grandparents that live, about 40 minutes from here and 4.5 hours from here. And so this has given us ideas for our child, and something that we're doing with with my son's grandparents is that my mother-in-law is making cookies for us and bringing them to all the grandkids. And we're all going to decorate them together on a Zoom call. And so normally we would do them together. We all have a cookie decorating party together every year, but we're going to decorate them together over a Zoom call next week. And so it's different, but we're still going to do it together. And
yeah, and I think, this is something that it's just thinking outside how we normally think about this. But for, there are lots of families who are expats, right? We've always lived at a distance. And so we have done, for example, virtual Christmas caroling, right? Where we kind of pop on and FaceTime random family members and sing, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And I would encourage any grandparent to do that, right? Because the kids would love it if their grandparents would do that back to them, right? Put on some reindeer antlers or whatever you need, and just do, it helps. I think it helps for, I feel good when we're doing it because there's lots of laughter, right? But it's something that you wouldn't normally think. We did virtual trick-or-treating this year, right? I took the kids around my aunt and uncle's house, and they had hidden candies, and the kids went to every door and said trick or treat. So I think that if we just flip it and know that this is the way that we need to, the way that we need to stay connected right now.
I want to mention, you mentioned the singing. And I know for me, that's actually one of my favorite memories of my grandparents is they left me voicemails on my phone where they would sing songs. And I've saved every single one of them, right? And I still go back and I listen to them at times. So that's really special. We have a question that came in. How to communicate if the grandparent and the grandchildren speak different languages and the parents trying to translate between them?
Okay, so I'm going to, is this a parent or a grandparent asking do we know? You can just.
I think Uzma, could you please clarify in the chat box for us if you are a grandparent or a parent?
And you know what, actually, I'll just say this because this will be relevant. So whether there are people that are facing this as a grandparent or grandchild, there's an app. I could say there's an app for that because that's what everybody says about everything. But there is an app and it's called Marco Polo. And I can pop it into the chat. And so what it is that it's kind of like a video walkie-talkie. And I wrote a blog about it, actually. There is a blog about it on my website that links to the site. This is a free app that you can use. And so the reason that it works, so if somebody's having hearing difficulties or if somebody's speaking a different language, is that you can send a message, to your grandchildren in whatever language you're comfortable talking, or vice versa. Mom can translate it and then send a message back. And it feels like you're having a back and forth conversation. So it's not like just sending a video message to them. It's all contained, and in the app itself, underneath is a running kind of they keep the conversation. And so my kids will go back and look at the different videos from their grandparents. And so it's a really great app for when there's some language barriers, because it can be frustrating, on both sides when there's always this translation happening. But this way you get to speak comfortably, and then mom can translate it when it works for her, again, or vice versa. And it's just a beautiful, I would recommend the app actually to anybody. I mean, I'm on it with 8 of my girlfriends, and I figure we're going to have a YouTube series pretty soon because of the conversations that happen using this app. But it's a great app. We have my 85-year-old mother-in-law on it and my 2.5-year-old son, right? All in the same chat.
Thank you. They say that they're a parent and they would like you to spell. How do you spell the app name?
Let me just, it's MARCO polo.me.
All one word?
I should have had marcopolo.me. Yeah, MAR, hang on, I'll just pop it into the chat. How about that? And like I said, if you go on to my blog, you will find an article about different ways to use it. So not only will you find the link to it, but I give you ideas about how to kind of make it fun. And I think also if you want to teach the kids, have the grandparent teach the children a certain language, that this is also kind of a neat, you could use that app in a number of different ways, I think, right? Like if you got grandma to say some greetings, and then the children could practice it and then come back to her, and so that they would have those kind of greetings. The other thing I want to suggest that you can do is that children love, the action games. And so I'm not sure how old your kids are, maybe you could pop on, but, kind of giving grandma tips beforehand to, basically to play kind of, Nona says, whatever it is, right? So, and getting grandma to take your kids through a series of actions, and you can send them to her in advance, right? So it might be, like do 5 jumping jacks, stand on one foot, rub your head and your belly at the same time, like whatever that might be. But if you're doing games that are more focused on action, then that might actually help with the language barrier as well. Kind of, end where I started, which is that I hope that you'll find some inspiration from this talk to stay connected, because I know that this is I know it's a really challenging time and sometimes it's hard to keep it up, but I really want to thank the grandparents that keep showing up for their grandchildren, right? Keep showing up on these virtual calls, keep trying, because it's not easy all of the time to keep kids' attention, but just them seeing your face is really important. My dad has come on 2 calls with like a snowball on his head. He's got, he's done a number of things that are extremely memorable and, mean a lot to me as a parent, that he's trying so hard to stay connected, because as parents, it's so valuable to have someone else love your children, right? It's an incredible gift that you're giving to, your grandchildren and your children.
All right. Well, it doesn't look like we have any more questions. So thank you so much, Kerry, for coming and speaking to us. This was incredible. I know that I learned a lot. And for anyone that's interested in learning more, Kerry mentioned her website, and you're also welcome to go to our website as well, mhamd.org. We did record today, and we will be sharing the recording with you as soon as it's ready. So beyond that, Tiffany, do you have any final comments for us today?
No, thank you so much. I think that this is very valuable information, and I think that, you know, your thoughts about grandparents being such an important part really ties to how impactful it is to have another caring adult in a child's life, and how that just plays into helping them become more resilient adults, and all of us to become more resilient people, especially during these times. And so this is all just really important information, and I truly appreciate you and the information that you shared, and am really inspired to call my mom and my dad right now and tell them thank you. And my mother-in-law also. And so I'm grateful, and grateful for everyone who attended, and hope that you all are leaving inspired to hug your parents and help your kids get connected to their grandparents or whoever it is in your sphere that loves them well. So thank you for attending so much.
Yes, and all of these things that we talked about are great protective factors for our own mental wellness too. Connecting with the people around us helps to keep our brains healthy, especially during this time of so much stress. So it's definitely something that's not only for the people you love, but it's for yourself too. All right, guys. Well, we're going to close for today. Thank you so much for coming. If you have any last minute questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. Otherwise, have a wonderful night. It's great to see you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for having me. Thanks everyone for being here.